Many of us, we make the mistake of displacing, taking feelings that belong elsewhere, and we put them, we import them, and we place them on our partners now, or on the significant, important people in our lives now. So, relationship killer number 3, dragging along, importing these old feelings and putting them on our people now. So how do we know if that's what we're doing? One way to know is to look at the intensity and proportionality of our feelings. It's where our reactions are out of proportion to what's happening right now in our environment. So our boyfriend or our girlfriend walks through the doors, is coming home, and is distracted and doesn't acknowledge our presence, right? Doesn't say hi. We're really upset about it. Our reaction is really intense. And our partner doesn't have a track record of doing that a lot. Okay, so what's going on here? We're importing old and unresolved feelings that belong with daddy or mommy or grandma or whatever onto our present situation and the people in our life now. So another way of saying this is that the person we're interacting with is getting more than their fair share of our anger or our negative reaction. And that's a relationship killer because it's so off-putting, it's a repellent for others. Nobody likes to feel like they're getting more than their fair share of someone's negative reactions. So, how to address it? The first thing is to recognize it. Whoa, so this reaction, the intensity of what I'm feeling right now is out of proportion. Which, by the way, doesn't mean that it's not valid. It simply means that it belongs in a bygone era. The feeling is really towards other people, right? And it hasn't been resolved. So the feelings are valid, but really it's being directed towards the wrong target. So we're importing old unresolved feelings, placing them onto someone right now who doesn't deserve the full blast of that. So number 1, recognizing that that's happening. Number 2, try to figure out where it's coming from. So if the trigger was feeling neglected or unacknowledged, see who else in your life made you feel that way, treated you like you weren't important or didn't acknowledge your presence, right? So you might come up with mommy or daddy or whoever, okay? Then realize that the bulk of those feelings belong with those people, not the person in front of you right now. They might deserve some of your negative feelings, but likely not all of them if those feelings are out of proportion. And then calmly communicating. I'm sorry, I think you got more than your fair share of my negative feelings. I'm realizing that you not saying hi when you walked in triggered a lot of feelings, and only 20% of them belong with you. 80% belong with X or Y, and I'm sorry you got more than your fair share. Coming at it that way is going to make it that much easier for the other person to hear you out, right? And not get defensive or irritated. And the chances are much greater in this scenario that that person is going to say, I'm sorry for my 20%. It was rude and I should have said hi, right? For example. So as opposed to a less understanding response. So when we parse our reactions, when we parse our feelings, and make sure that the other person doesn't get more than their fair share, by saying things like, 70% of me, 70% of this anger is really with my dad. It's not with you. 30% of it is with you. 70% of it is with so-and-so, right? When we parse our feelings that way, it inspires intimacy. It inspires closeness because we're taking ownership of a portion of our reaction. And if those reactions did spill over and the other person is getting more than their fair share, we apologize for that. And we let them know it's only 10% that's with you, right? You not saying hi to me warrants irritation in me. It doesn't warrant rage. So that's how to overcome this relationship killer. Recognize it, understand where it's coming from, parse it and communicate it in a parsed way. At that point, the other person is much more likely to take ownership of their 30% or whatever it is. And say, thank you for being so clear and for apologizing for giving me more than my fair share. I appreciate that. And boom, you have emotional intimacy you have fertile ground for a much more fruitful and satisfying interaction moving forward.